Hello, good evening. Welcome to the July edition of Columbia League of Women Voters Presents. I'm Randy Picht. I'll be your host tonight. I'm the Executive Director of the Donald W. Reynolds Journalism Institute at the University of Missouri. And tonight, this show is a public affairs show about issues and developments that are important to mid-Missouri and beyond. We do it once a month. And tonight we're going to be talking about the future. And a lot of times when you see a show about the future, it's about folks that talk about what do we need to do now to make sure that the future's as bright as it can be when we hand it off to the next generation. But tonight it's going to be a little bit of a twist on that, because tonight we're going to be talking about how we can make that next generation the best it can be so they can do the best they can do with the future. And when you have a conversation about that, you go right to talking about kindergarten, because I guess it's been maybe 25 years or so. The great book, All I Ever Needed to Know, I Learned in Kindergarten by Robert Fulghum. Still true today, still selling copies. Saw it on Amazon.com today. So kindergarten is a good place to start, and actually we're gonna go even a little bit before that, and we're gonna talk about getting ready for kindergarten and kindergarten readiness, how important that is, and how important that is to the immediate future and beyond that. So we have two terrific guests tonight that are going to fill us in on everything that's been going on regarding that subject and a little bit more. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and we'll get started.
I'm Pam Conway, and I'm the Executive Director of the Cradle to Career Alliance, which is an educational nonprofit serving Boone County.
My name is Michelle Haynam, and I am a member of this organization. I also work for Columbia Public Schools as an early childhood special education teacher.
All right, great. So Pam, maybe before we start, you could tell us a little bit about the alliance, maybe when it got started and kind of what you've been up to.
Great. First of all, I have to thank Randy for wearing his kindergarten socks tonight for the occasion. You know, not everyone would go that far, but we really appreciate that.
Thank you.
The Cradle to Career Alliance actually began in about June of 2012 with a group of community people getting together and looking at what they could do to support the public schools to make sure that all of our children graduated, ready for the workforce, and we're here to support our community, and looking at all of the things going on in the nation that might bring the best information and guidance to us. And then in January of 2014, they decided, I wasn't there then, they decided that the National Cradle to Career Strive Together Alliance was the best framework for them to use, and they applied and became members of the Strive Together Alliance. And since then, Phil Peters was their first executive director, and he did a lot of the groundwork as far as getting us to be members of the Strive and deciding what our outcomes would be and measurements for those and so forth. And then I came on board in 2014 as the executive director following him, and we've been working on it ever since. We're a little bit different in the non-for-profit world in that most non-for-profits either provide money for other organizations to do work, or they do direct activities with youth and children. And we're different than that in that what we do is we bring together the best minds in the county around each of our 5 goals, and we call them Collaborative Action Networks, or CANs, and ask them to really research and look closely at what's going on in our county, what the best practices are, what the deterrents to success are, what are some things that we could do as a group to really make a difference with the schools. We have members of all the schools. And We have 5 goals. One of those is all children ready for kindergarten that we're going to be talking about tonight. All children reading on level by 3rd grade. Children having a smooth transition in and out of middle school. All students graduating from high school, college, or career ready. And then students completing any post-secondary experience that they want to be involved in and workforce ready. So we kind of go from the beginning to the end. But right now we have 2 collaborative action networks that are in place, and the one we're going to talk about has been in place the longest, which is the Early Childhood Collaborative Action Network. Members of that group include kindergarten teachers. They include child care facilities, both home-based and site-based facilities. They include people from the colleges and universities in town. They include people from the state health department, all the different nonprofit agencies that serve children ages 0 to 5. So it's really a very rich group of people who get together with a lot of knowledge base on very different planes and study these issues and then come up with recommendations. And we have been working for about 1.5 years now, and have come up with 4 recommendations that we think are the most important. It's a cyclical thing. We don't end. So once we get these done, then we'll go and look at other things that we can do. But one of those that was a high priority of ours was really just defining what is kindergarten readiness. Because child care providers said, we hear different things from different people. Kindergarten teachers, each had their own opinion. And we thought, really, parents, child care providers, everyone needs to know, what is kindergarten readiness? And because we're a Boone County organization, there were several people who said, we need one voice Boone County. We need to have one definition that goes across the county. We all say the same things because kids move from different district to different districts, so that it's constant and we can all be focusing on the same things.
And when you have this coalition just for this one issue,
Right.
Do you guys meet at the Missouri Theater? I mean, you must have, how many people come to these meetings?
We do have a large group. We have about, we started actually with 2 networks. We started with a county and a city one because there were so many people engaged in this. And then we have now combined, and I would say, occasionally people would drop off. When we started moving to action, we had about 15 people raise their hand and say, can we be members? We want to work on this. So, and we're always glad to have people join us. So I would say right now we have between 45 and 50 members. Not that we get everybody every time,
right.
But that cycle in and out, and really a good core of people who are very dedicated to the cause.
That's great. That's great. So Michelle, you're really, if we had to pick one person in Boone County who had her finger on the current pulse of kindergarten readiness, it would be you. And so why don't you tell us kind of where you see the situation right now? You're talking about a definition for kindergarten readiness. That's one thing, but also just kind of what's going on right now.
Absolutely. And as Pam was saying, we started with several, almost hundreds, if you will, a couple, maybe, with 2 large groups, one of county and one of city. And it took all of those great minds coming together and really trying to plan out and think about and write down, thinking, what does a kid need to do in order to be ready for kindergarten? Lots of kindergarten teachers around going, they need to have this and they need to have that. And daycare and preschool teachers saying, well, how do we get there? And how do we let our parents know? So we started having to come up with a definition for kindergarten and really putting our heads down, and lots and lots and lots of time and effort and hours spent writing everything down we could think of and combining lists and spending countless hours and Pam did a lot of work of combining all those lists. When you have great minds, we talk a lot, so meetings run late, and so we wanted to make sure that we were getting the best ideas, making sure that we were encompassing all that it is, because kindergarten readiness isn't just turning 5 years old and knowing your ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. And it does go so much deeper and so much earlier than just being 5. And we wanted to be able to come up with a good way of letting not only our community members, but parents and everybody know this is how we can help get a kid ready for kindergarten. We can't wait until they're 4 or 5. Parents are always saying, well, I go to my kindergarten readiness, I go to a school roundup, right before school starts, and they tell me, oh, they need to know this. Well, how do I get there? And so that's where our organization is really striving to work towards making a plan.
Is there an example that you could give of, I think maybe folks watching are thinking, well, what's the big deal about being ready for kindergarten? You just have to, it's pretty simple.
Show up and go, right?
Show up and go. But
you turn 5 and you go to kindergarten.
But you guys probably had some spirited conversations about some things. And is there an example that would help kind of explain the work that you've been doing that would kind of get to that?
I want to start just by emphasizing how important it is that children come to school ready for kindergarten.
Yes.
And then I'm going to let Michelle talk about specific examples
Perfect.
of those things. What we know is that children who come to school and are not ready for kindergarten have a very difficult time catching up with children who are. And oftentimes then they aren't reading on level by 3rd grade. And children who are not reading on level by 3rd grade only generally have a 1 in 10 chance of ever being a proficient reader. Children who aren't proficient readers are 4 times more likely to be school dropouts. And in our prisons today, 4 out of 5 prisoners are school dropouts. So it sounds like we're starting really early, but the trajectory for children who aren't prepared for kindergarten can really be a negative one with a lot of intervention along the way.
So the trajectory gets set very early
Very
on.
early, unless there can certainly be interventions that can stave that off, but it's much more difficult.
Right. So is there something that comes to mind about kind of what would be a...
Many things come to mind when I think about kindergarten readiness. One of the biggest things that teachers over and over again say are social skills. And that's not something that is your reading, writing, and arithmetic kind of thing. Social skills is being able to work with their neighbor and sit down and listen to the teacher's directions. It's being able to conflict resolution with the peer or a group of people. Those things really are not something that have really been written down on paper as your ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. So those things start very early. We need children to be able to be productive members of society well before we need them to be productive members of society, if that is a way to think about it.
Right.
So we need them to be able to have confidence, and we need them to be able to take risks, to feel good about themselves. And that all is kind of embodied in that social skill realm, which is kind of a hard thing for some people to understand of, well, how do I teach my kid those social skills? So those are some really big things that we're really trying to do a really good job of explaining and making some good examples of, for people to understand that kind of aspect.
Yeah, because once you say, here's the list for readiness for kindergarten, then people, as you were saying, will say, well, how do I teach sharing?
Right.
If somebody says, how do I teach how to count, you can say, well, here's some flashcards, or here's this, or here's that. But some of these social skills are not as easy.
Absolutely. And that's why we want to start talking about kindergarten readiness really starts at birth. Developing those relationships and giving them those life experiences, allowing them to develop into the person that we want them ultimately to become as an adult, productive member of society. But that it starts so early on, letting them have those experiences and teaching them and giving them the words and the support that they need at a very young age.
Yep.
We had I think it was our 2nd or 3rd session when we were meeting, we had a group of 7 kindergarten teachers as a panel to talk with us from Columbia, and a group of 8 kindergarten teachers from the county to talk with us separately. And one of the questions I asked them was, so what is the number one most important thing that children need to have to be successful in school? And to a person, they said, self-regulation skills. And those are what Michelle was talking about. Being able to play cooperatively with others, being able to sit, being able to follow directions, many of those types of things. And so we studied that. We looked into it, so why don't because then people were saying, well, kids have much fewer self-regulation skills now than they used to. We have a member of our group is from Columbia Public Library, Sarah Howard, and she was saying years ago that for many years she could sit down and she would do story time and she would read for a half an hour and the kids would be transfixed. But now she says she has to change every 10 minutes what she's doing to keep focus. So things have been changing. And one of the things that we found is that children who are in high stress environments like poverty, and there can be, doesn't mean you're in poverty, they can be anywhere, but that have a lot of stress in their life or toxic stress in their life or who have experienced trauma are really unable to self-regulate. So that lays a whole different perspective on the things that we're looking at. But I would say that's our number one, is self-regulation. And I would have said it would have been reading or experience with books or language,
Right.
and those are all very important. But.
Right. Well, so where are we in Boone County in terms of just a general kind of scene setter for kindergarten readiness?
Well, we have developed this, what we call our kindergarten readiness tree. If you would like to take a look at that.
If you want to hold it up and show it. Or.
And basically, the representation that we were trying to get was that kindergarten readiness starts with, and that's at the bottom at the roots, and kind of talks about the birth at your infancy to those toddler years, about how you need to develop those experiences, have life experiences, develop that relationship with those caregivers and your parents, those tight bonds. And then as you develop into a learner, that you start having more of those things as you develop into a toddler and your preschooler, and you have more experiences, and that's growing your tree. And as you get to the top of the tree, you're getting ready. You're right at the top. You're 5, you're ready to go to kindergarten. And all of those things that have happened early on in your life have helped you develop into the skills that you need to be one of those kindergartners that's ready to be successful stepping in day one. So that when you are walking in that door, you are going to have a much better likelihood of being successful than if you did not have those skills to start with. So we are very close to finishing up our tree. We're hoping that it's going to roll out very soon to the entire Boone County.
So this would be available to parents, teachers, hospitals,
everybody.
As many people as you can get it into their hands.
We want to have it in doctors' offices, in all the preschools, in all of the schools. We're hoping to run about 10,000 copies of it. So throughout Boone County, there won't be a question about what parents need to start doing early and how they progress from there.
And so what is so you're going to launch this in the fall?
No, probably in August.
Okay, so right
Before
before
long,
school.
a couple of
right?
more weeks, yeah.
That August will be here pretty soon.
Yeah, it will be.
So what is the sort of goal first year, second year, third? I mean, do you have some kind of numbers you're hoping to hit, or I mean, is there any way to kind of measure how things are going?
Well, we do. We have a goal that 8% more of our children are ready for kindergarten in Boone County by 2020. Right now we have about in Columbia, although Columbia does their assessment in the fall and the rest of the county does it in the spring, so the numbers will be varied, but that's 3 or 4 months difference in time. And in a young child, that can make a lot of difference. So Columbia has, 70, 71%, 72%, kind of varying on the year, of their students ready, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
But there's still 30% that aren't. And in the county, it runs about 66 to 68% ready when they measure in the spring. So our goal is by 2020 to increase that by 8% across the board.
All right.
There's also a lot of disparities based on race and socioeconomic status, and we want to start really narrowing those criteria as well.
Yeah. All right, that's a good goal. So this is a good start. How else do you get the 8%?
Well, we decided on 4 action objectives to start with. The first one was defining what we're looking for.
And awareness.
So that awareness, so that everybody knows these are the kinds of things your kids need to really be ready for kindergarten. Another one, we've just written a grant to the Children's Services Fund. We don't know if we'll get funded or not, but to improve the quality of child cares in Boone County. which would provide opportunities for child care providers who don't have their CDA, which is a very basic early childhood certificate, to get that free of charge. And then they could go on and through the Teach Missouri Scholarship, get their AAS at Moberly Area Community College, go on to a 4-year degree if they wish to, and that would all be free of charge. In addition, we're going to be starting for juniors and seniors in high school a career path so that they can, in their junior and senior year, work toward their CDA and have that, with the exception of some additional hours they'd need to serve in a preschool program when they graduate. So they have a career path, then they could go on and go to the MAC or et cetera to get a higher degree if they wished. We're also going to provide for if we get the grant, of course, but this is our goal. We would also be providing them an opportunity to have a state-approved curriculum because many child cares don't have that because it's very expensive and the training is expensive. So we would have 2 trainers trained to train on that. And then we would provide that, and we'll also be working with the MU Department of Psychiatry to provide them with social emotional curriculum and behavior support so that the children would have behavioral and social health as well. So if we get that, we'll be going. If not, we'll go back to the drawing board and find other ways to try to get the money to make that happen.
And when do you find out about that?
You know, I'm not sure, but I think it's probably late August, September maybe.
Okay.
Grants were just done. Another thing that we're doing is we have a group that's working on communication. And one of the members who also works for the Department of Psychiatry just did a huge survey of parents in Boone County to find out how they like to get information, what are the avenues that they go to, what they seek and when. So that's going to really inform our communication team and how we provide information about issues about children, things that parents can be doing to support their children and so forth. And then we have another team that is really focused on parent partnerships and how we can work to support parents. So those are our 4 goals that we're working on.
That's good. That's a lot of work.
It is.
I hope you get the grant.
I do too.
Us too.
And Michelle, are there things based on this, that you're looking to do in the school system, since you are in the school system and sort of every day, trying to make things better?
Absolutely. Once that is finalized, we're going to have a better avenue of saying, this is what we really need to be focusing in on. I work at the preschool level, and that's a really good opportunity to work with those kiddos that are 3 to 5, usually 2 to 3 years before they're getting ready for kindergarten, which is a great spot that if they are missing any of those, that can be a time period to help educate more of the parents and teachers to help put those pieces in place. Like you said, some of the things are a little harder to really say, okay, here's numbers, go learn your numbers. So working on those social skill lessons, which are things that I currently already work with on a daily basis when I'm in those buildings, helping those kids learn how to share and how to self-regulate their bodies. And it'll be a better path for us to say, well, we're really fine-tuning because look at the list. We're really trying to stay in that definition to help everybody kind of create that. And that'll give us some guidelines for others to help understand where we're going and why.
Yeah, and I guess the idea here is a lot of it is just making the parents aware that it starts a lot sooner.
Yes.
And hopefully that will have a big effect.
And some of it's not rocket science. It's not hard to do. It's just knowing that you need to be doing it, really. And I think that awareness will make a big difference with that.
Yeah, and giving them the tools like this, and maybe if you get the grant, you'll have more things you can bring to the table.
Well, and on the backside of that, which Michelle didn't I don't think you mentioned that, but on the backside of that, what we hope to do before we print them is to have lots of resources that parents can go to help them with those things, so that we aren't just saying do this, but then they'll have a lot of different ideas and places
where to go and places to seek, and especially through all the surveys and things they were doing, there were lots of parents that were seeking out Facebook, online avenues, and there'll be a lot of those that will help guide them and lead them to places to help them learn how to do some more of those things.
And
Yeah.
our communication committee is really going to be focusing on making sure those resources are available.
So for folks who are watching the show, what would you both hope would be what they would take away from tonight's program?
Kindergarten readiness starts at birth.
That's good.
Don't wait.
Don't wait.
Don't wait.
Now's the time,
Read,
is that right?
read to your child in utero.
It's never too early.
It isn't
to
too
start
early.
preparing.
That's a lot of messages.
It is.
That's good.
Reading to them, talking to them, not baby talk, but really helping develop their vocabulary, teaching them how to self-manage and talking to them about what happens when they feel angry or upset, or somebody takes their toy, how do you manage that? But just really walking through those things with them. It's a lot of things, like I said, it's not rocket science, it's just knowing that those are important things to do.
Right. The knowledge makes a big difference. Little knowledge goes a long way,
That's
right?
right.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight. This has been really fascinating, and I wish you lots of luck with the
Thank you.
initiative. It sounds really good. And that's our show for July. So I hope we'll see you next month. Thank you.